Hello and welcome to another episode of Teppou Republic. On the last episode, the Kanazawa sallied out of Mino to attack the armies led by Takamichi and Kodama. They teamed up to destroy the enemy force despite some moderate casualties in the early phase of the battle, and as a result of the victory, we recaptured Mino. It's back in our hands. The victory also allowed us to get some leverage over the Kanazawa and get them to declare peace with us, along with a reparation payment which we also managed to do with the Sunpu, leading to an age of peace for the Tsu, around half a year of in-game time that I used to just build up my economy and produce a strong military production facility in Owari. Then we broke the peace to attack the Kawana clan, the last clan stopping us unifying the Tsu domain, attacking them in Ki and defeating them with ease, and then besieging them in Ise. Now let's continue. No action so far. We've been conducting siege operations for a while, but the enemy are quite entrenched. My plan is to try and get them to attack out from the castle, but I'm not quite sure how to do that. Oh yes, it isn't just me leading this campaign actually. The new army that Takayuki has been sculpting is here too, led by one of the Umi nobles, Anigakoji Yoshiyuji. He's a slightly strange man, not really on board with the idea of trying to lure the enemy out into sight of our naval guns. I think he is a samurai at heart, even though he leads the most modern army Japan's ever seen. He hasn't had any time for me despite my senior rank. It's widely known that he was only put in command because Lord Takehisa threw a strop and forced his father to make it so. That isn't to say he won't be of ability when the action starts. Anyway, I could talk at length about the politics in the camp, but it must mean nothing to you. Suffice to say, all is well, and soon I shall be able to report that all of Iga's borders are secure. Until then, stay safe. Welcome back to Teppou Republic. While the siege of the Kawana is going on in Ise, the Nagaoka are making their move on South Shinano. They send a raiding army to go for my tea plantations. However, my hidden reinforcement group ambushes them, allowing me to engage them in a battle before they can damage my infrastructure. You can see their army is consisting mainly of cavalry, along with expeditionary forces, a perfect raiding force, an army that will have a lot of movement points. I'm going to be able to stop them because Kodama's reinforcements will join the battle in this ambush. So even though I can't ambush them properly with the actual army performing the ambush, my reinforcements should be able to help me win a traditional battle. So the enemy column is going to be unharassed at the beginning of the fight there in this forest. They're just going to run around and do their thing. You can see my forces are sitting in the corner of the map. I'm basically sitting where my reinforcements are going to come in so I can unify my army straight away. But already my light guns are in range to start peppering the enemy with a few shots. It's not going to do very much though. So Kodama's force is coming onto the field. I'm basically going to set up a formation right where I am now and hope to receive the enemy, or if not, go and find wherever they set up. Luckily, as I began to set up my basic formation with missile units in front and melee units behind, the enemy appeared to be coming towards me, so I knew I could just stand my ground, moving their big cavalry over these hills. I think their expeditionary forces are somewhere in the forest, so I don't know where they are, but I assume at this point they're advancing as well. My artillery is going to be hitting the enemy throughout their advance, the ones I can see for now at least. It is mainly just these guys on the right flank who are exposed to artillery fire. I also set up the parrot guns that came in with Kodama's army. Those parrot guns of course can fire the deadly shrapnel shot, which is especially deadly against cavalry forces. Look at that, a single burst of shrapnel takes out over half of that cavalry regiment. Very good stuff. Overall, the enemy's cavalry didn't take that much damage from my artillery, so they're still going to be fairly intact as they come into the battle. My parrot guns have shifted fire to attack the enemy's left flank cavalry, but as I do that, all of the left flank cavalry, save for one regiment, starts running across the back of their force. It looks like they're switching them onto the right flank. I wasn't quite sure what they were doing here, but actually what they're doing is a strange cavalry tactic. They're going to have their right flank attack the center, while their left flank folds right around the back of the right and is going to go and try and do a rear attack on my forces. Quite strange, but it's good for me because it's delaying their advance whilst they set this up, so they're taking more artillery fire. So you can see these guys are arcing around. They're going to go right around the edge of my formation, which isn't quite protected by the red line. I haven't deployed right on the edge of the map, so they can get behind me. I have, though, put my own cavalry in an ambush position on the rear left of my line. Not going to be quite enough to stop all of those cavalry, but I also have spearmen in the area who can help out. The main lines are now beginning to engage, and the enemy's right flank cavalry are charging me. The enemy are charging right past my ambushing force. I'm going to have to force my ambushing force to come out and engage with the enemy before they get too close. The enemy's right flank are now about to hit my line. I managed to get spears out to hold them off just in time. I still take casualties among my missile infantry, but it's not too bad, even though some of the enemy are broken right through. The fact that those cavalry are now bogged down in those infantry means things aren't going to go very well for them. Over here, some of my levies are being charged again by cavalry, but a slight uphill slope just before they arrive slows them down. They take a volley of rifle fire just before they hit, which does extreme damage, which means their charge was very ineffectual. Meanwhile, my cavalry are fighting with 3 regiments of enemy cavalry out here on the extreme left. I've sent in some Yari attendants to help out my guys, but as we've seen before, Yari attendants aren't all that effective against Saber cavalry. Saber cavalry will inflict a lot of casualties on them, but they will take a lot of casualties themselves, so it's going to be a high attrition battle over there, but I'm hoping I'll win. Here on my left flank, I've now won out against the enemy's cavalry right flank, who are now retreating. This means more of my units are being freed up to engage in the actual line battle which is going on with the enemy's expeditionary forces. You can see those expeditionary forces here haven't really taken any damage. They're still in pretty good condition, but they are taking continual artillery fire. Unfortunately, I'm not being very accurate with that artillery, so not getting many kills, but it is damaging their morale. And you can see from the balance bar that I'm actually about to win this battle, because the rest of the enemy's expeditionary forces suddenly retreat. They see their cavalry being slaughtered against my line and realise things aren't going to go well. They fall back, and the survivors of the enemy's rear attack also start to fall back, as well as they are overwhelmed by the Yari attendants. So it looks like the enemy's raiding force has been demolished. We've protected the tea fields, and we've protected South Shinano from the first stage of the Nagaoka invasion. Their main force is yet to arrive, but the question now is, will it arrive, given that they've already lost tons of their forces before the battle really starts? We were ambushed, my lord. There were Sioux forces guarding the tea fields who halted our advance, but before we could make any move, the Sioux main force attacked to our rear. They only let us raid that deep so they could catch us in a trap, and I fell for it completely. We tried to uphold your honourable name, my lord, but the Sioux line was solid as a rock. The men who did not die fled. Only a handful returned with me to rejoin you, my lord. The rest have broken their vows. I submit my head to you, my lord. Please take it as recompense for my failure. Do not curse me with the shame of living on, I beg you. So at the cost of a few hundred men, we've taken out this raiding force completely. They're going to be deleted from the map, and it's going to grant our men experience points, so now we're even more prepared against the next phase of the Nagaoka invasion. Now the Kawana forces who are hanging around in southern Ki look like they're starting to move towards Ki itself. I think they plan to attack the castle to attempt to restore the Kawana's rule there. I noticed I could use Takahisa to defend a bridge which would stop them being able to do that, but actually I wanted to link him up with his artillery from Ki and set up an ambush in the forest he's currently in. The problem is that this is leading to public order problems in Ki because they're quite shogunate leaning, and Yamato also has its own potential public order problems because it's so modernized. So when I move this agent to go and increase the public order in Ki, it actually means I now have a public order problem in Yamato instead. I decided that Yamato I'll just solve by building more troops there because I am using it as a local recruitment center anyway. Now moving into the next turn, the Nagaoka main force falls back from the border at South Shinano. It looks like they've called off their invasion. Now the Kawana make their move. We saw just then there are Kawana forces way up north, these guys here, who are now being attacked by the Toyama force. I think the Kawana must have had some sort of campaign going on, perhaps against the Kanazawa clan, and they were trying to come back to support their homelands, but it's too late. The Toyama have finished them off, and as I expected, the Kawana guys in Ki are heading for the castle, so I've prepared my ambush ready for that. Now over to the situation in Ise, where I'm still besieging the province. The only reason I haven't attacked is because I don't want to take any casualties, and a siege attack is always going to be risky unless you do it properly, and doing it properly is actually very boring at this stage in the game. Mainly you just use sharpshooters and artillery to whittle down the enemy without taking losses, which takes a very long time. And you can see the balance bar is very much in my favour, so I can actually just win with an auto-resolve and skip that problem. However, I do want to still show you what you can do with naval artillery fire in a siege battle, so I'm going to bring you what would have happened if I had attacked properly. You can see here the enemy actually has quite a bit of light artillery. It would have made things interesting if they had used those artillery correctly, because doing siege skirmish tactics is quite hard against artillery. You can see they've deployed their best unit with no line of sight behind the Tenshu, so they're pretty much wasting their artillery. All of their guys can't fire, but I can fire at them. So already you're seeing how siege skirmishing works. I can just sit here for half an hour, expend all of my ammunition destroying the enemy. But anyway, we're here to see the naval artillery, so I'm just skipping forwards. I pretty much just waited for it to be ready and started firing. And you can see the reason naval artillery is so important in siege battles is because it gets one-hit kills on the fort defenses, and destroying defenses kills all of the men manning it. So even though the artillery isn't particularly accurate, when it does hit the fort defenses, it takes them out straight away, kills 75% of the men manning them, and leaves the enemy defenses in tatters. Look at the size of the craters it's left behind as well. We're talking some seriously deadly ordnance coming in to hit the enemy, and that definitely makes them feel lucky to be under just Paragon fire the rest of the time. So I had actually had 2 naval artillery barrages, so I used another one, accidentally destroyed the entire Tenshu with a single hit. I was trying to see if I could hit some of their artillery. I took out a whole bunch of them, but for the most part this second barrage wasn't as good because I targeted it in a less densely populated area of the castle. The enemy are only defending the front of the castle, which means I can attack the rear and sides without taking any losses if I wanted to, but as I mentioned, I don't really want to, just for time reasons. The 20-pounder guns eventually did actually get line of sight on some of my men, which was actually gave me further reason to not bother continuing the fight, because I realised that while I've been waiting for my naval artillery to charge up, my men have been standing around taking hits from the enemy's artillery the whole time. So I was like, okay, I've really bodged this up. Let's head back to the strategy map and get a proper strategy, which is just to auto-resolve in an overwhelming way. I'm going to bring forces over from Owari to make my position even stronger, and then I'll simply go into the attack. You might have heard there that the second naval barrage actually got the enemy's balanced bar down to the point when the announcer was saying I've already won the battle. So you can tell that naval artillery does get a lot of kills on the enemy force as it comes in. I actually lost over 500 men in the auto-resolve, which I was disappointed by. I expected an easier win in auto-resolve, so maybe going and spending the time doing that battle myself would have been useful. Luckily, there isn't actually a realm divide after capturing this place, as I thought there might not be, which means there's no real repercussions to losing those troops. I can get them back in just a couple of turns, and we're back to full strength. These regiments now need to start planning their next move, because I need to decide where I'm going to take them. We can see the Kawana forces in Ki have disappeared as a result of the capture in Ise, which is very good news. So now Takehisa doesn't have to go and wander around down there. He can return back up towards Ki and Yamato and do something more useful. Now heading into the next turn, we've built the first railway, and you get this funky cutscene. Let's check it out. So how about that? These people are witnessing the new ways firsthand, our first railway. I actually thought this message would appear a long time ago because I've had the railways working for a while. It's possible that it takes a few turns for it to be considered working. Anyway, I now get this offer of a student exchange. I can send students to Western nations to learn their ways in exchange for a relatively large payment. I decided this is probably a good idea. I've never seen this event before and I have no idea what it does, but I thought it's almost definitely going to pay dividends, and it's in line with the philosophy of the Su domain to be sending its students abroad, so it sounds good. So now I need to start getting my troops out of Ise and into more useful positions. This army I need to build up more, so I'm sending those guys to Owari to receive more troops. Anagakoji's troops I wanted to send to the bridge at Totoimi to defend against eastern invasions. I need to get military access through to the Okazaki lands, but I can do that in a minute. I thought that I'll try and send him to the train station first though, to see if he could just teleport over there, but he actually can't reach it, and I later discovered you can't use the train station when you don't have military access anyway. You can't use a train line that goes through a land you don't have military access to, I should say. And in Ise, I realised I needed a couple extra troops just to keep public order okay, so I decided to just recruit some generic guys and then move Takamichi's army on. I was thinking I'm going to move him to a sort of reactionary position, hanging around in Umi province, where he can just march in the direction that takes him, depending on what I actually need to do. Also, it gives him the opportunity to move towards Wakasa, which I almost forget is in my domain, in case it comes under attack. Sneaking away to consume Western knowledge has been a tradition of my family for generations now. Finally, we can make it official. No longer shall the children of Tsu be disadvantaged against those of our new allied nations. The efforts of hundreds of years of researchers and great minds shall be gifted to us, and all they ask in return is money? For this service, I would gladly make myself their slave and give up everything I owned. Truly, our ties with the Americas are providing dividends of all kinds. I should really brush up on my English before the Colonel visits next. Let's to the library, eh? Now I've come to the diplomacy table with the Nagaoka because I realised I can get peace with these guys. I've defeated them recently, which means they're probably on the back foot, and indeed they're willing to submit to peace and they're willing to trade with me. I wanted to see if I could sneakily get some money out of them, but they didn't look particularly happy with that idea, so I decided to just go with trade because I'm still going to benefit from that. So this is the last remaining enemy who's actually invaded the Tsu domain before, being taken off the war table. We no longer have to think about them. We're now just at war with the Tosa clan, which as we've seen hasn't really had any repercussions so far. And now my constant dedication to peace has earned Takayuki a new trait of being peace-loving, which improves our diplomatic relations and makes people around him more happy. On the subject of peace, the Tosa then offer me a peace. I decide to ask some demands. I ask for vassalship and trade, and they say that this is satisfactory. I then throw in the fact that I want some money off them, and that's fine too. They are very desperate to get peace with me, so I'm going to go ahead with this deal, take the money and take their vassalship. Very good news.
You have spoken well, and I am persuaded. I will accept your...
I wondered why they were so desperate for peace, and you can see it straight away. Their capital is under heavy attack by someone else, so it appears they're about to be defeated, so perhaps taking them on as a vassal wasn't really the most useful thing to do. Now I'm going to use the railway for the first time. I need to move some troops from Ise here over to Yamashiro. I'm going to send these troops to back up Takayuki, who's guarding Yamashiro. It basically teleports you to the train station and you keep all your movement points so you can move on from the station after that. A very useful feature indeed. With those forces in position, my defences at Yamashiro are looking good. I've got Takahisa defending Yamato, and now Anakakoji is in position to defend Totoimi. Lots of my border defences are now looking pretty strong. We're ready to start thinking about trying to trigger the realm divide. The question is, who am I going to attack? One option is to attack the Okazaki. These guys are my allies, but they're also in a weird position. They are preventing my domain being fully unified, but they're very friendly towards me and there'd be severe penalties for attacking them. The other option was the Sunpu, but they have a strong alliance with all of the eastern clans. Attacking them would be dangerous. The Toyama in a similar position, but then I found the Kanazawa are quite diplomatically isolated. Only the Toyama are allied to them, and they're not really trading with anyone. They're also already at war with clans who are my allies, which gives me more of a reason to be declaring war on them. So it looks like the Kanazawa are the perfect targets for my next expansive move, but there was a pretty good risk that the Toyama would declare war on me at the same time, and the Toyama control Hida and North Shinano, which means Mino and South Shinano would be under threat in that situation. So I'm getting troops together to try and provide a wall against them getting into our lands. The army I'm trying to put together in Mino, it just isn't strong enough. I don't have enough free troops, so I wasn't really willing to depend on it, so I was a little bit worried. However, the Toyama have no garrison in Hida, so I don't think they're going to attack right away. So I knew I had some time to continue building more troops down there in Owari, and I'll send them up to join the army shortly. Meanwhile, Takamichi, who is hanging around in Umi, can move towards Echizen, which is controlled by the Kanazawa. You can see the Okazaki, my ally, are actually already doing the same thing, sending a samurai-heavy army to attack Echizen. So now the time has come. I'm going to formally declare war. I don't need to call my allies to help because they're already all at war with them. And as I feared, the Toyama joined the Kanazawa side in the war, so it's going to be a full-on war across all of the Tsu's northern border. Unfortunately, all of my best forces are currently guarding the western and eastern borders, so I don't get any surprise invasions. So I'm actually going to have to struggle a little bit to put up a strong offensive. What's working for me though is that Hida and North Shinano aren't garrisoned by Toyama standing armies, so I thought I can probably steal them if I can attack as soon as possible. Kodama's force starts moving up. I set an ambush on the road between North and South Shinano. I realised I am going to need a few more troops because his army is full of not particularly effective men, mostly Yari attendants and loyalists, no true soldiers. Takamichi's army, I have no worries about sending them straight to him, but he doesn't have enough movement points, so I'm setting up an ambush near Echizen, ready to attack in the next turn. Going into the next turn, the Okazaki, my allies in this campaign, start moving agents and armies up towards Echizen. Their army charges forward, but it doesn't capture the province. It remains in Kanazawa hands. I don't know what happened to that army. I'll have to move up and find out myself. The Toyama are moving forces around in North Shinano. South Shinano is possibly under threat from them. So back in Echizen, General Takamichi moves his men up. The Okazaki forces are nowhere to be seen, but there is a damaged army belonging to the Kanazawa in the castle. I also noticed the province is currently in open rebellion, which means even though I have to wait a turn before I can attack, those rebels might attack the castle and deplete the enemy even further. So it seems that all these battles in Echizen are going to go to my advantage. I'll only have to face a small force when I attack. Now Hida still remains temptingly unguarded, but the force I've got together on this front isn't really enough to take the castle. I decided I'd move it up and set some forward ambush positions just in case any small Toyama forces came down from Hida towards Mino. Now in the Shinano situation, it looks like the Toyama are going to attack me. I was content to stay where I am and attempt to ambush them, at least until I know what sort of forces they have. Perhaps I can charge forward and steamroll them and then capture North Shinano. Moving on, the Okazaki are up to more sneaky business in Echizen. A depleted remnant of their army runs away, so I think their army was actually destroyed against the walls. The Kanazawa bring up reinforcements, so it looks like they're starting to mobilize there, but actually the rebels did attack the castle. You can see the corpse of their commander on the floor beside the castle. The castle itself now has barely anyone inside. I moved Takamichi up to begin a siege. The balance bar is pretty in my favor, not enough for me to want to auto-resolve, because I know I can take out the enemy reinforcements before they reach the castle and thus further heighten my advantage and then do a proper siege. This is an opportunity for me to actually show you those siege skirmishing tactics I've talked about, because now it'd actually be very useful for me to do them. So we're going to head down to the battlefield and see if we can take this castle without too many losses, because of course the Kanazawa appear to be mobilizing for a counterattack, so we do need to be careful. You think an attack on their walls will be fun? Are you that obsessed with glory? Attacking a wall is the most dangerous feat you can attempt on the battlefield. A long climb claims the weak-bodied, and then once inside, a chaotic brawl with no escape claims the rest. Each man knows that most of his company will die, but everyone thinks they will be the one to survive. But once you're in there, even the best fighters will be cut down like the rest of us. With your back against the wall and no options left, you will panic and die. Sure, there is glory in winning, but, brothers, you will not survive to enjoy it. The enemy castle is only a small one, and the only way they have of attacking me from within are with their wooden cannons, who of course aren't very accurate or powerful, but they are going to be peppering me for the entire battle, which does make siege skirmishing a bit harder, because I'm going to take losses throughout the period I'm skirmishing, but of course the enemy are going to take far more losses, so it's still in my interest to continue the siege skirmish. I'm setting up cannons on this ridge with a nice view over the castle, ready to fire inside. All of my infantry are getting ready to receive the enemy's reinforcements, quite an overkill, because they actually only have 2 regiments, some Ronin who are leading the attack, followed by some Bo-Kachi. So my plan is to annihilate these guys. They're obviously trying to get towards the castle. They come over the ridge and come into line of sight of my men, who start just cutting them down. The Ronin can't really do anything about it. They can't run fast enough to get towards me because they're going uphill and they're already tired from sprinting up the hill. And more of my men are gaining line of sight the closer they get, so they rout and get out of there after taking about a third casualties. The Bo-Kachi following behind them are making an interesting decision. They could actually be firing at me right now from behind the crest of the hill, arcing their arrows over the top, getting kills on me without them losing men, until I cavalry charge them, that is. But instead they decide to rush forward. They get much further in than the Ronin. They are samurai after all. They are more willing to do things like this, but of course that turns out to be a bad thing for them, because they get themselves killed. The majority of them die, and the survivors run away. The Ronin came back from routing actually, but they're obviously going to be annihilated as they attempt a second charge. So now I can take all the time I need to start reducing the enemy force inside. This consists of firing your cannons into the wall to destroy all of the fort's outer defences. This not only kills enemy soldiers, but it removes the cover of the survivors so that my sharpshooters can move up and start taking them out. Here's a regiment of sharpshooters. We've started firing. I've got them loosened up just in case the enemy wooden cannons start firing at them to minimise any casualties. The announcer tells me I've triumphed over the enemy because I've already killed so many of them, and we've only just started the siege really. So the enemy are now lining up out of cover, as you can see here, so I can take the opportunity to start sniping them, taking as long as I need really within the battle time limit, which is about an hour long. So this is a bit of sped up footage of me just waiting. I don't have to be at the keyboard to play this part of the game. All my guys are just on fire at will, taking shots when they can, shooting guys who appear at the walls. The artillery just firing whenever they can. The artillery actually has very poor line of sight at the moment, but they are taking shots when they're available and slowly depleting the enemy's men. Eventually I did get bored and decide to make the attack. Actually, even before half the time limit had run out, my ninjas attacked the castle's rear, got a volley of grenades into the enemy's general, which killed half of his men. It was very good actually. Yes, I could have continued the siege for longer if I wanted, and taken out even more enemy soldiers, but by this point, if you can see from the balance bar, there are barely any of them left. So I thought I'd just try my chances and attack all across the front of the enemy's castle. I'm also attacking the east side with a detachment, and I'm moving up men to attack the west side at the moment. The artillery is still firing now, danger close, and still taking out enemies. You can see the enemy reacting to my attack. They're putting their melee units on the wall ready to receive me. Over here they're doing something incredibly clever, which I didn't notice. They've got their saber cav just killing my men as they come up the wall. The saber cav have such high melee attack stats that they pretty much always get the first hit and kill my men immediately as they come over the wall. My guys don't have a chance to take them out, which is very unfortunate. I'm taking extreme casualties coming over the wall at that part. You see here where there are no enemies defending it, it's a bit better. I can come over and start shooting the enemies. In the middle, the enemy's general was doing the same thing, but a burst of friendly fire annihilates those general's bodyguards and allows my men to get inside, clearing out the way, which is good stuff. Over here, the enemy's infantry are engaging my line infantry. I have a severe disadvantage in this fight and will take extreme casualties. Again, I don't know why I'm using my line infantry in such an offensive capability. They're not actually that good at castle assaults. These Naginata Levy are better, and they're having a good time slaying the enemy's artillery crew behind the Teppou. So we've wiped out pretty much everyone away from the walls. It's just the enemies at the walls we need to finish off. And now we're starting to gain numerical superiority, and we're going around the back of the enemy's formations with the regiments who weren't engaged by the enemy's remaining troops. So I can start to just shoot into the back of them and generally destroy them. I've also now got some Yarikachi here into the corner who are attacking the enemy's most powerful regiment left, their rifle attendants, and they will destroy them very quickly in melee. So once the deed was done, there are no enemies left. Those rifle attendants were the last guys, so it's a victory even without having to capture the Teppou. We slaughtered the enemy to the last man, a decisive victory, but some of our guys did take some pretty substantial casualties coming over the wall. But as you can see from the ground, the majority of the bodies are the enemies. So overall, a siege skirmish and then a siege assault results in very positive results pretty much every time. So that's all for now. We'll see the spoils of this victory next time. Thanks for watching. We'll see the Toyama invasion and a devastating attack by a surprising foe next time on Teppou Republic.